drives you? What inspires you? Let's ignite your why. Welcome back to Ignite Your Why podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today's guest was born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, but she currently lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. She obtained her bachelor's degree from the University of Cincinnati in kinesiology and exercise science. She later went on to attend Xavier University, where she obtained her master's of sport administration, and she is currently working at a local nonprofit here in Cincinnati as the Director of Supportive Services. So let's give a warm welcome to my friend, Hillary Williams. Hillary, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. I kind of messed up on your intro, but I just went through with it. So she got her master's of education in sport administration from Xavier University. But either way, it was correct. We'll make it work. But I'm excited for this conversation. I feel like the last time we truly had a conversation was when we were at Xavier together.
Yes.
Which was
2019. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, because we graduated. Well, I graduated right at the heart of the pandemic. So.
Were you May?
I was May.
Yeah, so I finished in December.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to walk and stupid COVID. I was so pissed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was so pissed. And then they had a virtual graduation.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
I was like, what is this? This is they should have let us come back next year.
They should have. I agree.
But whatever. It is what it is. Yeah. So let's just hop straight into this. So what is your story?
Okay. So I was born and raised in Indy. I lived with my mom. She's a single mom, with my sister, and my sister and I were the closest of friends, or are the closest of friends, just due to us growing up together. We lived in an apartment complex, and we were the only two kind of in that apartment complex to go to a different school. So that's how we got so close. It's just that all the kids would hang out with each other because they knew each other, and then there was just us. But either way, I found out that I had some brothers when I was 7, and I met them and love them to death now. So there's that. Trying to think what else we have going on. I guess when I was 5, my parents asked me if I would rather go to first grade because I was tested high enough to just skip kindergarten, or I could do kindergarten but learn it all in Spanish. And I told them I wanted to learn it all in Spanish. So I ended up going to a private school, and we learned everything in Spanish, like all of our math, science, history, all of that, up until I turned 12. And going there, I was one of 3 Black kids in my grade. And of those Black kids, I was of the lowest socioeconomic status. Everybody there was rich, super rich. So I felt othered in so many ways going there. And it wasn't until I went to high school, or actually 6th grade, I was told that I would be going to public school, cried my eyes out. But the second public school I would go to would be probably one of the best things to ever happen to me. Growing up with a bunch of people who didn't look like me, I learned to hate everything about myself. I kind of wanted to fit in, and me being the tallest, the biggest kid, I was tall for my age. And also, bigger built. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to shrink in and fit in, and I don't know, it didn't hit me until after I graduated from this high school that I'd gone that I was afforded a very unique opportunity to go to school with people who looked like me. I got to appreciate so much about myself, and after years of feeling lesser than, it was something that I wish I would have seen sooner. So anyway, yeah.
It's definitely interesting to hear that aspect, because one, that is super impressive that you learned kindergarten through 5th grade in Spanish only.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming your fluent in Spanish?
I am.
I'm so jealous right now because I wish that is something I could do. I think it's a very important, vital skill
It
to
is.
have. And I wish it was kind of taught more. Like, I didn't take Spanish until I was a freshman in high school. And it's like, it's easier. I think it would be easier to learn as a child while you're still developing like those
Yes.
skills, especially when you're learning how to speak English. If you're also learning how to speak Spanish at the same time, I feel like it would just resonate a lot better.
Yeah.
But I do have a question because you talked about growing up, it was just you and your sister. And then around the age of 7, you found your brothers. How did that kind of come about and how did you learn that information?
So one day my dad was my parents had separated for a little bit and my dad just came and dropped us off. He sat us both on his lap and he's like, I have something to tell you guys. And we're like, yeah, what? He's like, I did something bad. And we're like, what? He's like, well, you guys have brothers. And we're like, okay. He's like, you get to meet them today. And so we ran upstairs, grabbed a bunch of toys to give to them. And then we met our brothers. One of them was, if I was 7 at the time, he was about 5, 4 or 5. And then my other one was an infant. So that is how that happened.
Oh, okay. So they were like one was close in age and the other one was younger. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the dynamic was a little interesting. I
Oh, it
think
was very interesting.
I can only imagine because like me and my brother, I don't say like we were like super close growing up.
Mhm.
We argued a lot,
Oh.
fought a lot.
Yeah.
We were 3 years apart, so it was just we shared a room for 18
Yep.
years,
Yep.
pretty much. Never had like personal space. It was always just me and my brother. We always everywhere. Like it was just Aaron and I. And I think now that like we're adults, like we appreciate each other's presence more. Like we get along more, we talk more. It's kind of weird how that dynamic works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's crazy. Um, I'm still gonna digest your I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm still gonna like break down your
Yeah.
answer. So you talked about how you went to school K through 5 in a private school. And I always ask this conversation and always ask this conversation. I always ask this question when I have people on my podcast who went from private school to a public school
Mhm.
because I'm curious. I understand like it's a completely different dynamic. But what was that like for you and how did you adjust? Because I know I'm not sure what the demographics of that school are like, but I'm pretty sure it was a big culture shock for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, my first year of public school, my mom didn't really have time to like deep dive into which one I should go to, so I went to my boundary school. I lived on the east side of Indy, so my boundary school was not the best. I remember day one, I witnessed my first fight. Kids, I was just like done so, and I was just like, I was like, oh my god. So
Traumatized.
that was day one. At that school, they didn't really know what to do with me because of my education in Spanish. They had put me in with like all the other little sixth graders, and I was helping to teach the class. And I told my dad that I'm like, Dad, I'm the teacher's assistant. He's like, you heard the what? And I thought it was a good thing, but no. He's like, we're not going to have that. So he called the school. He's like, we need to do something about that. We need to, she's there to learn. She's not there to teach. So they ended up putting me in a class with a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So you're just really smart. I always knew you were smart just by like going to school with you. But learning the background, I'm like, oh shit, like she's just gifted. Like I'm dead serious. Like I think it's a gift to be able to like in I really don't have words today and I don't know why. But I think it's interesting how you can just like I'm looking for a word right now and I can't
I
find
see
it.
that happens to me all the time, and I'm not satisfied until I find the exact word I want, and like it can take forever.
I know,
I have to
but
look up synonyms and stuff. I'm like, okay, no, that's not it, but we're getting close.
I think it's amazing how you can retain information, right? It's a special gift because I feel sometimes like there's the people that it just comes super easy to, and there's other people where it's just like super hard and it's a struggle. And sometimes I wish I was that person that it just came super easy to. I'm not saying like it doesn't like I don't retain information well. I think it's just harder because I just get distracted so easily. Like, especially like if I get bored very easily. So like if you're a professor and you're just talking,
Yes.
I think back to um, Mr. Schulte's
I
class.
knew you're gonna say him.
That class bored me to death. I hated it with a passion because one, I hate math, right?
Me too.
But it was just like his voice wanted me to like go to sleep. I was just like, I can't do this.
And it broke my heart because he was the nicest person and I was rooting for him, but I'm also like drawing in my notebook.
Yeah, he was super nice. Like he was super sweet. And like I also didn't help that my dentist name's also Dr. Schulte. So like every time I heard the name, I was like traumatized because I hate the
Oh no.
dentist. Mind you, I hate the dentist because of the sounds of the dentist.
Okay.
Not like
That's fair.
yeah, it's just like it makes me cringe.
Oh yeah, because that's going on in your mouth. Like it's a lot to
Mm.
wrap your head around.
It reminds me a lot of like silverware scraping together.
Oh stop. Yeah. Ugh.
Another thing I can't stand.
Ugh.
So I'm curious, what made you decide to go to UC and get a degree in kinesiology and exercise science?
Okay. So I guess I'll start from the back. I am a very introverted person, like almost to a fault. It took everything in me to. I'd always thought like with your podcast, I'm like, oh, that'd be fun to be on that. But here's the thing, so that's just it took a lot for me to get on here. So yeah, very quiet. And especially when I went to a new school, once in the 6th grade and the other in the 7th grade, like I just tried to keep to myself. And I was just known as being the quiet, smart one. And the way I got to come out of my shell was through sports. I'd been in sports since what I was 6 or 7. Started off with
Mhm.
soccer, like everybody else. And then my dad, we would just play basketball in the park every day, and then we moved on to tennis and all that. So I was quick to join all the sports at my first public school, and that's how I made my friends. Like that's how people got to see that there was more than just me doing well at my work. That I actually had like a personality. And so that was the same case when I went to my next school. I didn't really make friends until I joined sports and I was able to connect with people outside of the classroom. And I realized that like without sports, I wouldn't have been afforded as many opportunities as I had in my life. And I
Mhm.
kind of wanted to pay homage to that. And that is essentially why I went to school for that. But it was difficult because I flitted between first and second in my class, but I had no desire to go to college, like zero. Like my sister by 8th grade knew what she wanted to do, where she wanted to go, all of that, and I'm like, I don't even know what colleges are in Indiana. I kid you not, I had no idea. And I hadn't even heard of UC until my senior year. Like that's how little I wanted to pursue college. But I felt like in the time that I was in high school, like teachers would always push on you like college is the only route you can go. Like
Mhm.
look at this graph. Like you see this, you're not going to touch a million unless you go to college. And if you have to take a loan out, like so be it. It's good debt. Like so we were fed this lie for so many years. So I felt like yeah, I have to do this. So um, when I let me see, spring semester of senior year, I had no idea where I was going to go to college. I put all my eggs into Vanderbilt because I told myself this is where I wanted to go. I didn't want to go there. I just wanted to say I wanted to go there. Like it didn't. And I ended up not getting in, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So I went on a college tour to different colleges nearby,
Mhm.
and for the spring break, and we saw UC. I fell in love with the campus. I'm like, this is the coolest campus I've ever seen in my life. I want to go here. And so I applied as soon as I got home, got in, and then dove into sports sciences because I like sports. By year 2,
It's
I'm like,
so crazy because like that's literally it was me
yeah,
essentially because when you think about it, You're correct. I think a lot of times it's people think it's college or bust. And in
Yeah.
reality, there's so many other options and other routes that you can do. Like you can become an
Yes.
entrepreneur without
Hmm.
going to college. You can go to a trade school. You can join the police force. You can join the military. There are so many different options out there that
Yeah.
aren't really talked about enough. And it's kind of frustrating now that like I'm an adult because I always felt like I wanted to go to college, but it was my choice
Yeah.
because my parents never forced me to go because they didn't go. So they're like, how can we make you do something
Yeah.
we didn't do? But you're right. When you're in school and you're in high school and you're at that like age of senior year, it is a constant like thing thrown down your throat. It's like college, 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 apply to scholarships, apply to this school, go to that school, but it's not like it's not the like end all be all. You don't have to go to
Yes.
college to be successful. I know people who haven't gone to college and make hundreds and thousands of dollars a year
Yes. Yes.
because they have the drive. I think that's the thing. And I have this conversation a lot with like our generation because I feel our generation's the kind of generation is like once we're bored, like we're done. Like because if you're not helping, like I said this on the last podcast episode with Erica, like that just came out like not too long ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, if I'm not learning, if I'm not growing, like this
Hmm.
isn't for me anymore. Like there, I'm not gonna stay
I
here
agree.
because I feel obligated, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how you said you went to sports science because you love sports. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what I was going to
Yeah.
school for. I was going to school to be an athletic trainer because I
Yes.
feel like
Same.
almost every, I feel like every athletic trainer has, or every person who wants to be an athletic trainer has that story of why.
Hmm.
Because like for me, I spent my entire junior baseball season out with like a shoulder surgery. And I spent so much time with my athletic trainer. Shout out to Miss Diana.
Oh,
Um, but I spent so much time with her that I would like had so much appreciation for the work that she did. Because if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have gotten back to baseball as quick as I did and things of that nature. So I'm curious, like, did you have a specific story to why you wanted to do athletic training? Or was it, I just like sports?
no, it's more I just like sports. I have no idea what I want to do, but this makes sense. And fun fact, I joined the wrong major for that. I chose like so this was more like the physical therapy end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around year two where I was like, I made a grave mistake. And it was too late to turn around. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna finish this roller coaster. Like the transition to college was oof. She was
Yeah,
rough.
let's talk about it because I'm curious because you grew up in Indianapolis,
Yeah.
which if you're not from if people are not familiar, Indianapolis is about an hour and a half away from
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Super
So
close.
you going away, being on your own, how was that for you? What was that like?
I'm trying to think of how deep I want to go. So I guess I'll just go for it. So I realized that I wasn't a completely straight, like when I was seven, basically. Like I didn't know for sure, but like I had
Mhm.
memories of like as early as seven. And around, that part of your childhood or like that time in life, like it was frowned upon. Like you hear people like, oh, it's like an abomination, like an atrocity, like gross. And so I kept that bottled in for my whole life. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want to like go where no one knows me and just start over and be my true self. And guess what I didn't do when I
Be your true
went.
self.
I was still scared. So that was part of what made it tough is that I was still like not living my full truth. I was still very ashamed of it because I was taught to be ashamed of it. Like just from
Mhm.
small interactions with people, with family, with friends, all that for like what 18 years. So like you can't undo that without diving into it. You can't undo that in a day. It's gonna take years.
Yep.
So anyway, I didn't know, like, that's not what I had on my bingo card of experiencing my freshman year. So, of course, I was, super depressed, super lonely. I ended up joining the Ultimate Frisbee team to make some friends. But, I guess rewind. It's just important, or it's interesting that I didn't know what I was experiencing in the moment. We grew up and like hear that depression exists, that anxiety
Hmm.
exists, and all of that. But we're not told like how it could truly manifest, like how you're one way for a minute and then like all of a sudden you're someone completely different and you don't see the change because it's happened little by little
Hmm.
until you're not like yourself anymore. And like for me it just felt like, yeah, this is the life I'm in. I didn't realize that. I just never realized. And I don't know when I did. I think it was when I was finally out of the funk, but I didn't get out actually until sophomore year of school. I decided like I'm gonna wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and work out every day, like go to the gym because I just needed to. I don't know. I
You
don't
needed
know.
an escape.
Yeah,
And
I
I
needed to
think that's
escape.
the thing is, as athletes, we kind
Yeah.
of use our sports as a way of escaping from reality and a
Yes.
way of just being free. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. And when you don't have that anymore, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you for just sharing because it takes a lot of courage. And like you said, you don't realize the steps that you're taking that are leading you to a depression or leading you
Yeah.
to anxiety. And it's kind of hard when you're hearing the outside noise, if that makes
Hmm.
sense,
Yeah.
and you internalize it. And it's something that like I've always done as well, is like I struggled with just like how other people will perceive me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want this person to look at me
Yeah. Yeah.
differently. I don't want people to talk about me. When I walk into a room, I see people whispering and I'm like, oh shit, they're talking bad about me. It's kind of like that
Yeah.
thing where it's
Oh.
just, and I've had these conversations with my therapist and it's just, she always reminds me, she's like, Austin, it's not your voice. It's not your voice in your head that's telling you those
Hmm.
things. It's someone else's voice. And she calls them wounds. She doesn't call them trauma,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a wound deep down that's like trained your brain to think the way it thinks. And when she said it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't forget it. Like I can't forget that things. Like once she said that to me, I was like, you are right. But it's still so hard
Yeah.
to retrain your brain to think a different way when you did it for so long.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, like it's easy. And I'm just like, no, the fuck it's not. Like this is hard as shit. Like it is so hard to heal. And I don't think people understand that. Like it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
Does. Your brain can come up with the best arguments ever. It's you versus yourself. So like which
Man.
you is gonna win.
Man. It's scary. I
Yeah.
think that's the thing is like,
Mhm.
like I know I shouldn't care about other people's opinions. I
Yeah.
know I can't control what people think about me. But do I still worry about that? Absolutely. I don't know why. I just do. You know what I mean? And it's just because I've been trained this way my
Yeah.
whole life. I've just always been a perfectionist because I was an athlete. So it's just interesting how you don't realize the shit that happens as a child really
Yeah.
affects your adult life.
It does.
So
uh,
I do have a question for you because
yeah.
I did creep on you before we did this podcast. I saw you did an internship at Hughes as
Yeah.
a student athletic trainer. What was that experience like for you? Because I know working in Cincinnati public schools, it's an eye opening experience.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you?
So I just did it for a summer. I really enjoyed my time there. So the athletic trainer there, he was actually their baseball coach. I never had any type of experience with baseball. We didn't have that as a school team where I went to high school. So like I didn't realize all the nuances of baseball until I went to those practices every day, and I'm like, oh, so it's more than just standing on a field and catching a ball and whatever. Like there's a lot to it, and I was just like kind of awestruck that yeah, if you know what to look for, then yeah, it could be totally fun to watch. But when I did watch it before that, I was bored out of my mind. I'm not gonna
Hmm.
lie.
It
So
can be a boring sport to watch, but when you learn the rules and understand the
yeah.
intricacies behind of why you're throwing this pitch or
Hmm.
why you're shifting like in the field because
Yeah.
it's a left-handed batter or anything of that nature, it's interesting to find out there's more to it than just throwing a ball and hitting it.
I know, and like these little tiny little adjustments that you have to make, and I'm like, oh, like, and people can do that automatically, kind of, you know.
Hmm.
But like the coach is kind of laying it all out because a lot of the kids on the team had they didn't have much experience playing baseball, so he did have to kind of start from the bottom. And that kind of served me well because then I got to learn alongside the kids and like, yeah. So it was a really good experience. I got to see the type of relationship that he had gained with these kids. Like they would just go to his room just to say hi, to bother him, like to get raid his snack cabinet, whatever. And it reminded me a lot of my high school. And so it made me feel at home. I am glad to have done that. But I also realized, maybe I don't want to work with kids. Kids are our future, but I don't want to.
I understand. I think that's the biggest thing, though, is like that's the importance of internships.
Yeah.
I think it really shows you of what a job is really like. I tell the interns we have now that are under like the athletic departments in CPS, where it's like, this is working in sports is a lot. It is a very rigorous schedule. It's never the same. You can have one-offs that pop up where you have a to-do list of everything you need to do, and then one thing pops up and now you have to forget about that list and go handle this over here. And it's just, how do you adjust? How do you stay on your toes and stay on your feet and still get shit done when it needs to get done? It's a lot. I like it. It's the adrenaline rush. No day is the same, but I think a lot of interns realize they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. Because when you think of an athletic director, people think they just go to sporting events.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it's like. I've heard
You know what I
it's like,
mean?
and you basically sell your I don't want to say you sell your soul, but you were in it. You were in it
Every single day, because you got to be there during school
Yes.
hours, and then you got to be there until like 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it is exhausting sometimes. Like exhausting. But I kind of want to move on to the next segment here,
Okay.
because it's the biggest chunk of the entire podcast. So what is it that truly inspires you? But more importantly, what is it that ignites your why?
Okay. Wow. In the beginning, I guess I can go from I'll start from the beginning. I mentioned that like I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. Like I was around my sister who knew her path, and I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta find my path. Like, but over the years, I've found that like what really ignites my why is just the pursuit of finding my own genuine happiness. And I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago where I would be now, there's no way I could have laid that out for you. I had no clue. So like, even the past 2 jobs I've had, like, I had no plans of doing that. Like, but I found enjoyment, like a true enjoyment in what I've done, no matter the job. And I just want to be able to find enjoyment in what I do. I want to be able to learn every day and be a better person, leave the world a better place than when, like, lost my train of thought. But I do want to leave the world a better place, like, after I leave. So
Yeah. Leave the world a better place than how you found it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is I don't think we ever know, right? And I had this conversation with someone else on this podcast. I feel like I have similar conversations with people, but it's like our passions change over time, right? And I think it's normal to be 18, 17, 18 years old and not know what you want to do. Props to the people who do.
I know.
Wish I was you. But I was not one of those kids either. I think my mind was always changing. I changed my major in undergrad 4 times because I didn't know what I wanted to do. First, it was athletic training. Then it was teaching. Then I went back to athletic training because I was like, I can't make up my mind because I think it's just so much pressure.
It is
to know what I want to do for the rest of my life at 18 years old. And I don't think you really know unless you know. Like some people do. Like good for them. Like good for you. But I think it's more common to have the uncertainty of your future.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about life is things happen and you don't know why they happen or when they happen, and you can pray about things and you can want things to happen, but it's just you have to be patient, and I
Yeah.
think that's the scary thing. And I'm just curious, of you said like you didn't necessarily want to do the jobs that you've done for the past two previous roles, but why is that? Like what drew you to those positions even though you didn't necessarily like want to do them?
Um, and I don't want to say I didn't necessarily want to do them. It's just that I didn't seek them out, like,
Okay.
for exactly what they
My
were.
apologies.
No, you're good. No, 'cause that's what I told you. So I guess I wanted to clarify. But I know, for the first job, actually, I was still working at Chipotle. The pandemic kept me there a little longer than I wanted, was super miserable. And I all like for my whole life I've had a hard time asking for help. Like for my whole life I've been told like you're super independent. Like I love that about you. Like I listened to what people told me who
Hmm.
I was, and ran with it basically because I saw that as a good thing, that I was independent, that I was smart, whatever. And so yeah, I would always cower from any opportunity to ask for help. And when I didn't ask for help, I ended up going to college with no type of scholarships or anything because I didn't know any better. I thought I knew it all. So fast forward to I've graduated from undergrad. I can do absolutely nothing with this degree. It's useless. It's just an expensive piece of paper. And I realized, you know what, I need to do the research to find out what I want to do and what I don't want to do. So that's how I ended up at the internship with Hughes. I did three internships between undergrad and grad, and I did a lot of research and I came across Xavier's program. And I reached out to Dr. Olberding actually. And I was like, can you tell me more about this program? Like, what can I expect to do if I were to
Hmm.
complete this? And he was just like so excited. And I don't know.
That doesn't surprise me.
I know. When I say he changed my life, because like, I don't know. When I got into UC, it was like more of a, you're lucky to be here. Like, you're welcome, basically,
Hmm.
despite like my success in high school. But with him, it was like, we would love to have you. We'd be so excited to have you. Like, our program is amazing and come and see why. So, like, I did the whole tour of the building and all of that and got in. And I kept contact with him after I graduated, and I emailed him one day and I was like, no, I'm going to ask for help. So I was like, hey, Dr. Olberding, like, I'd love to have lunch with you if you're free. Told him I was looking for a job, and he actually sent one my way. And it would be for the city of Norwood as their director of programs and events in the recreation department. So that is how I ended up there, was actually Dr. Olberding. I had no idea that the job even existed. And I realized, you know, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be the director of recreation programming. So I was pursuing that basically once I got there. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I kind of had like full license to do whatever I wanted because their recreation department was starting from scratch. Like
Hmm.
I would be building up programs from the like ground up. So I started a tennis program with the help of Xavier's tennis team. I remember the mayor told me like this is the first tennis program that Norwood has seen like for the Parks and Rec in over 30 years. So
Jeez.
like, yeah. So like I said, like I had a lot of room to work with. And I don't think I'd ever been trusted at that level to just take it wherever my mind was. So that was a lot of fun. I got to become really close to the community. I was at every event that we ran, so I got to meet a lot of amazing people. And that time was that was easily like one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. Like compared to Chipotle, though, come on. So
I think it's amazing how you use your network. I think we often forget about our connections that we have. And
yeah,
I think it's amazing how you reached out to Dr. Oberding and he was able to help you secure your first job after
yeah,
graduation. I think that's the hardest thing, is finding a job after graduation. And especially in the time that we graduated, it was just very,
yes, bleak.
yeah, it just wasn't, it just
In
didn't
sport
sit.
too, like nothing was happening. Like that was
Yeah.
probably the worst position we could be in.
I was like, thankful for Apple at the time
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, like this kind of sucks because you go through this schooling and you're like super excited to see what's next, and you're just like, well, and then you have the competition of now that sports are back up and running,
Yeah.
you have everyone applying for jobs and people have 10, 15 years of experience. And I'm just here,
Hmm.
freshly graduate, just trying to get my way in.
Story of my life. They love using lack of experience against you. I'm like, but I have heart. What about that?
I think that's the thing is like, you're not giving us a chance. And I think
No.
that's the shitty thing about it. And I think the most frustrating part for me is applying to jobs and never hearing a thing.
Hmm. Or
Like,
applying to a job, getting 3 interviews and a presentation, and then them ghosting you. Then when you call them back, they're like, we don't think you had enough experience. I'm like, oh, we couldn't realize that 3 interviews ago.
right? Like, it's so frustrating to me. But I'm curious now. Why did
Yeah.
you leave?
The money.
I don't
I
blame
love
you.
Norwood, but I I had done a lot for that job. I'd done a lot. I'd given so much
Yeah.
of myself. And it'd been over a year, and I'm like, you know what? I think I deserve a raise. And I'd never asked for a raise in my life, but I'm like, I guess that's normal. So I asked for a raise. I presented a spreadsheet of everything that I'd done, all my successes, all my accomplishments, and I just never got an answer like, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. And I'm like, you know what?
Beating
I
around the bush.
Yeah, I deserved better than that. And as much as it, hurt to leave like such an amazing job, like if money wasn't an issue, I would be there.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to want more for myself because I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was dipping out of my savings every month. So I just literally couldn't afford to be there anymore, unfortunately.
I mean, that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think it's the nonprofit world. Um,
Yeah.
it's amazing work, but sometimes the pay isn't great. So you just
Yeah.
gotta kind of truly love what you're doing or have
Yes.
a side hustle, which is kind of shitty.
I
But
I was making more at Chipotle, just so you're aware.
oh my goodness. I
Yes.
remember you working at Chipotle. You would always come to class after work. And I would always be like, can you bring me something?
Did I ever bring you coupons?
Yes, you brought me coupons. I appreciate it. So I'm curious now, what is it that you're doing now? And how did you come across this job?
Okay, so I actually saw a position for a wellness supervisor, and I'm like, I love wellness. So that's how I came across that job. And the experience wasn't exactly there. I think that was one of their initial trepidations, but they saw that I was bilingual in Spanish, and in the community I work, a lot of the people we serve are Spanish speaking. So I think that's what actually got me the job. And it is always interesting how, like, for the jobs I've gotten, my experience has always come into question. And then I get the job, and then, like, 5 weeks later, it's, you're too good for this. So I did get promoted, like, 6 months later into the director role.
Period. As you should. As you should.
Yeah.
Because I think your work ethic is amazing. And I
Thank
think
you.
just talking to you and spending time with you at Xavier, I think you pick up on things super easily. And I don't know if it's because you played sports. I think athletes just have that that thing where it's like, oh, like I can pick up on this so easily and I can do this very well. And I
Yeah.
think we put our all into everything that we do. I don't know about you, but I've always been told to do the best every single day and don't give people a reason to talk bad about you.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm a freaking janitor, I'm gonna be the best janitor you've ever
Hmm.
seen.
And they make good money too. So.
I think that's the thing is just living in this economy right now. It's very difficult, just with the cost of living
Hmm.
and the cost of groceries being the way they are, with the very minimal pay that your employers want to give you.
Yeah, and they keep raising that like level of comfort bar just higher and higher. So like when you're like clawing to it, it goes up again. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
It's a never-ending process, I feel
Yeah.
like.
Mhm.
So I want to go on to my third segment here,
Mhm.
the most favorite segment of this entire podcast, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird because it's about igniting your why. But
Yeah.
I'm a big mental health advocate,
Yeah.
and any chance I get to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. So, with that being said, Hillary, how have you been taking care of yourself mentally?
Okay. So I I kind of did it unofficially, I guess, that sophomore year when I started going to the gym and like
Hmm.
it me versus myself, but like for something good. And then I would like write down one good thing that happened to me that day and put in a little jar and open it at the end of the year. And like I didn't realize that my mindset had shifted until the end of the year. And I'm like, you know what? Like I just felt like I was out of a fog. So like I kept that going. I still work out rigorously. Wow. So that's definitely part of my mental health care. I journal every day, or I try to. So I journal weekdays at work, to be honest. I meditate when I can. I always keep time for like fun hobbies and not like hobbies that you want to get paid for. So like I'm trying to think of hobbies like basketball, tennis. I do puzzles. I love puzzles. Like listening to an audiobook and puzzles is like unmatched. It's so fun.
Until you're missing a piece.
Until yeah, because my cat they love puzzle pieces, so I keep finding them on the floor. I don't know how they got to them. It's wrapped up right now, but whatever. Um, there were moments like where I live in my head. That's I don't know
Mhm.
the anxious introvert in me, like. And so I realized, oh, I could stare at this wall and live in my head for 4 hours, or I can go on a 4 hour walk and have thinking time. So I got hip to walking for like miles and miles, especially on Wasson Way. Oh, love that. Yeah. So that's mainly it. I try to be very self-aware, because when I wasn't, like things sneak up on you.
Of course. I
Yeah.
think that's the scary thing about mental health is if you're not doing the necessary steps to attend to yourself,
Yeah.
it's easy to go in that rabbit hole and get into a very dark place.
Yeah.
And I think exercise is a great way to like kind of decompress. I've started going back to the gym recently,
Yeah.
trying to be consistent. I go at least 3 days a week, which is a
Mm.
lot for me,
Yeah.
especially with the schedule I have, just like
I
work
couldn't
wise.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like I go three to 4 days a week. I think that's
Mhm.
the biggest thing for me. But it's also like you said, finding that hobby outside of like work. Like
Mhm.
for me, it's like social media.
Yeah.
I love creating content, not necessarily being on social media. I think that's completely different,
Yes.
but being able to sit down and create graphics
I
and
love that.
think, oh, like what can I post this day? Like how can I do this? Or even if it's like creating graphics for Woodward, like game day graphics or final
Ooh.
scores, like I just love doing that kind of stuff. And it's like so appeasing to me. I wish I had my phone like on me so I could show you like
I
one of the
want to see.
graphics.
Are you on
Uh,
like? Do you use Canva for everything?
I it's a mix of Canva and Box Out, but I use Canva for most things. So
Yeah.
I'll text it to you,
Yes, please.
and I'm just like, these are the two I made recently, and it's just the creative freedom, just being able
Yeah.
to kind of find your niche and just mess with things around. But I'm so hard on myself. Like it's bad. Like I'll like stare at a graphic and I'm like, I liked it, but now I don't. I'm like, I think it's missing something or it's not good enough.
A
And then I'll send
professor.
it and then I'll send it to someone and they're like, that's really good. And I'm like, I don't know.
I I had
Because
to do a lot of that for Norwood. Actually, I was their social media manager as well, and got yeah. I worked on Canva like probably every day, but
and they
it
didn't
is
want
a
to
lot of
pay you.
fun.
And they didn't want to pay you.
Oh no, they didn't.
That's a shame.
It is.
And that's the shitty thing is like sometimes like not employees, employers lose great employees just because they don't see their value or their worth and give them what they deserve. And it's sad, honestly, when you think about it.
It was such an interesting dynamic over there, like, because there was like the old Norwood and the new Norwood, and so old Norwood would just lash out at me, like they did not want that type of change.
Oh well, sucks to suck.
Actually, like, yeah. Oh, I tried to throw an adult pool party over there and got so much like
hate.
Yes, for a pool party.
I mean, I feel like people are always gonna find something to complain about. I think that's just the nature of America. But honestly, I'm gonna ask this question now because my mind is wondering. You say you journal. What kind of like journaling do you do? Because I know there's like different types. Do you just sit down and just write, or do you like bullet journal, which I think is pretty cool? If you don't know what bullet journaling is, you should look it up.
I'll have to look it up. I've heard of it, but I can't with confidence say that's what I do. So I saw this post one. I think it was on this bookstore's Instagram, and it said like journaling while not trying to convince your journal that you're cool. Like, so I find myself doing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I try to write cool things in the journal, but for the most part, I'll write about like my experiences. Like, it might differ, like the first little chunk, what I experienced for the day, what I thought about it, how I could have responded better if there was a way to respond better, things that I want to do. So that's like the initial like first part. And the second part, I like manifest like things I would like to see happen, like, or how I want to be. So like currently I'm kind of manifesting. What is it exactly? See, I might have to whip her out. But just being at comfort with who I am, trusting my intuition, and not like, not second guessing and be like, are you sure? Like, just,
being confident. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people. Especially, I always relate everything back to sports, is because I was always good at what I did. Some people say I was great, but I always felt like I could be better. But I think that's the thing, is we have to have confidence in our abilities, and it's easy for us to question, like, is this good enough? And I think it's interesting and important that you are self-reflecting every single day, and not only just self-reflecting on like things that are going on in your life and how it's affected you, but you're also thinking like, how can I become better? Like, what do I want out of life, and how can I move forward? It's definitely a good mindset to have. I will say that.
It is. I agree as well. And it's good to like really put into paper, to really like truly think about like what it is you want, instead of just saying like, oh yeah, I want to be successful, I want to be happy. Like, how do you want to get to that place? What are the steps that you're going to take? Like, so
I think those are vital things to think about. Because I sit here and say I want to grow this podcast all the time, but it wasn't until recently I sat down and thought, okay, what can I do to help grow this podcast? But not even just the podcast, is just the brand, Ignyte Your Why. Like, how can I grow this brand? And it was just something I had to sit down, and I love talking to other people about it, just picking their brain and figuring out like, oh, does this make sense? Because to me, I have so many ideas. It's so many ideas to a point where it's like, it can be overwhelming. But when you have someone, like, I talk to my best friend Devon about it a lot. Just like, oh, like, I think this could work. And just getting his feedback is important to me, because not just because like I need someone else's validation. I don't. I think it's just more so just, I think this could work, but does someone else think it could work?
Yeah, and you can get that perspective of someone like that you trust inherently. And
it's weird because I know what I want to do, but I also love just talking and figuring out like how someone else can improve it, because I know I don't know everything. I will 100% say that, and I love picking other people's brains. So like, if you know more about producing, I'm gonna ask you stuff about
Yeah,
producing. If you know more stuff about something else, I'm gonna ask you. I ask questions. I'm not afraid.
I love that. Yeah.
No, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you for taking the time out of your day to hop on the pod. It's been great catching up with you. I think we need to talk more often.
I think so too.
We don't need to go 21, 2, 3, 4 years without talking,
That's
Hillary.
style, but
Like,
yeah.
like, come
Life
on,
is
we got.
quick. Oh my god.
I know we got to be better. I think
Mhm.
that's the thing, is just being more intentional. So I'll
Yeah,
definitely reach out more often. Hopefully you do the same.
yeah, I will.
But if anyone wants to continue having a conversation with you about anything we might have talked about today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Let me see. I'm on LinkedIn, Hillary Williams. And then I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. Not too active on both, but whatever. And Facebook, and you can find me under Hillary Williams. Yeah. I don't know. Do you give like specific ats or what?
I'll put all your information in the
Okay, that
description
works.
below. So don't worry. If people want to find you, they'll be able to do it in the
Okay.
description below. So thank you again for taking the time to come and be on this podcast. Like I said, it was a pleasure talking to you and
Yeah.
getting to know you a little bit more. Besides the student Hillary, it's been a pleasure, honestly. But I also want to say thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to put all of Hillary's information in the description below. If you happen to reach out to her, please just make sure you note on how you found her. I'm sure she will appreciate it. Again, I'm going to put all of Hillary's information in the description below. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us at Ignyte Your Y. That's INGYTE, not with an I. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You name it, we are there. So make sure you give us a follow. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I would be greatly appreciated. I love you guys. And I hope you guys remember, find your purpose, ignite your why. And I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.